And welcome back, everybody, to another edition of Around the Bases with Bubba and Mo, episode 46. Still a very, very cold MLB Hot Stove. So we have other things to talk to you about. Check us out on Twitter at Around Bases Pod. I am at BDentric, and my co-host Mo. Find him on Twitter at Boston_Mo. Mo, how we doing?
Well, better now. It's a cold hot stove. It's no longer cold in the Northeast. It's not -2 degrees anymore. It was like 38 today, and I thought it felt like 80. So it was kind of amazing in that sense.
Yeah, it's weird. We got 2 inches of rain overnight here, which is insane for us. So it's been weird weather, to tell you the truth. It's been crazy.
Yeah, it's been terrible. But it's going to be 50 on Friday. So if there was no snow here, I'd go golfing.
I'll send you pictures. Well, we'll kick it off with some MLB news. Obviously, there is not much to talk about. So we're leading it off with Carlos Santana, the new Philadelphia Philly. His MLB offseason program, as many know, there's always some interesting offseason programs. You know, Bartolo Colon doing like the 1980s calisthenic rubber band moves, and Carlos Santana's pushing a car up a hill. What do you got, Mo?
This offseason's been so cold. We're leading off with freaking Carlos Santana pushing a Mercedes-Benz up a hill or whatever the car it was. But do we actually believe he was actually pushing this car? Like, seriously?
It's tough. It's tough.
It sure looks like it, but the guy in the front seat was acting like he was in neutral getting a car wash. Like, I don't know whether he was actually pushing the gas, because like I listened to it a little bit and I'm like, well, can you hear him? But you can't really hear it because there's background noise. And I mean, if Carlos Santana is pushing a car up a hill, I mean that's pretty impressive. But I just don't see it. I mean, put him in the strongman competition then if he's pushing a car.
Yeah, it's pretty funny, and like you said, that's as bad as things are right now. We got to go to those stories. But it was funny, like right after I looked at that Instagram, Sports Illustrated tweets out literally an hour ago, Gio Gonzalez is pulling a forklift. He has like a harness around him pulling a forklift.
Why does he need to pull a forklift? Why
I guess to keep that 88-mile-an-hour sink going on that fastball. I have no idea.
He's a pitcher. Like it's not like he's Bumgarner, and of course we don't want Bumgarner doing anything with machinery. Like get him an Uber driver for the rest of his life. But
anything that has an on and off switch, he's away from.
Yeah, nothing, no drill, no nothing, no guns.
He doesn't even get an electric toothbrush.
Yep, none of that stuff for Bumgarner. But yeah, Gio Gonzalez doing that really doesn't make sense. I mean, Carlos Santana is at least a power hitter. You know, he's got an little easier ballpark there in Philadelphia to in that short right field porch. But yeah, that I didn't know about that Gio Gonzalez. That's kind of weird.
Yeah,
but I don't know.
Yeah,
so that's where we're at right now. Is I thought about maybe pushing a car up a hill too and having like my wife like hit the gas maybe slightly, and then it would look like I'm just like Carlos Santana, but I don't want to really show myself my guns doing that. So we'll leave that for Carlos Santana to do. But let's move on to the Oakland A's, who may have a ballpark now. And again, as I mentioned last week, when they talked to the president on MLB Network, it might have been MLB Central, so it might have been during the season too. They had a site picked out, and it was still 2023. So apparently is it a different one from that, or is it the same one?
From what I see, it's now another one, because that initial one was shut down. Now they have 4 new firms they're reaching out to develop a new plan, and their goal with this new plan is by 2021 to break ground on a place to open in 2023. So that's how far away we still are, where a lot can go wrong, because obviously they've had many new stadiums in the works, and it still has never happened. But this is the newest one. Location. It's known as the Peralta location in the Oakland area. A bunch of warehouses, parking lots, not much going on. They're trying to clear it out basically and start from the ground up. But some of the builders they have developed a lot of the minor league stadiums. It looks like some of the new ones that are really, really good, and some like monuments, stuff like that. If that makes any sense. They helped with the World Trade Center Museum and all that kind of stuff. So, site has BART right next to it. It could be a pretty cool setup, so it can be better than Oco Coliseum. So that's where they're at for now. And again, it's a slow time period. So we're talking about the A's potential stadiums, but at the same time, it's a big deal. I've gone to that stadium many times, and it is an absolute travesty. I've been to better college stadiums, let alone minor league stadiums, than Oakland Coliseum.
Yeah, it looks. I mean, on TV, I've never been there. On TV, it looks terrible. I mean, it's a football stadium. It's not a baseball stadium. So, and that was the time frame for the other site that they had way back in the summer. So, is this because of the lease that they have with Oco, or?
I think that's what it is, because initially Oco was built for baseball. Then Al Davis had his ways with the stadium, and now they need a way out. And I'm pretty positive it involves the lease. I'm not like 100% sure, but I'm really sure that's where it's going.
Yeah,
it's the only thing that makes sense, because the craziest part, I think, and the reason why I like bringing up the stadium factor is the A's seem like one of those teams for relocation if they can't get a stadium. So the fact that they're really pushing to find a stadium says a lot. So.
Well, Billy Beane doesn't want to leave Oakland. He's never wanted to leave Oakland, so he's probably the front runner for this whole thing.
Exactly.
And also, one of the things that came out of this too is we all know Oakland is a low budget organization. Billy Beane always has to kind of rebuild on the fly, and that's the way it's gone. I mean, they had their heyday with Zito and Hudson and Mulder and the rest of the guys that they've had in that staff. And they had their chance, with Giambi and Tejada to really go far, and they never really got there. And that's where kind of the Moneyball thing came around. Now, where everyone's kind of on the same wavelength with the whole analytics movement and sabermetrics and whatnot. Billy Beane doesn't have a leg up on everybody. And from what the president said in that interview, from what I remember, is when they build the ballpark, they're ready to spend more money. So we're talking another 5 years, 6 years. I mean, that's a long time for them to wait for a stadium and then say, okay, now we're ready to commit to some players and be able to keep our guys when normally we have to trade them away to kind of replenish the farm system to start that next rebuild.
Yeah, and they have some really good depth there already, so it'd be a shame to 6 years from now, obviously, that won't be there. So it'll be interesting to see how that all comes to fruition.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about some things that took place in the hot stove. It's not like electrifyingly hot, but at least something took place this week. And we'll kick it off with a 3-team trade between the Royals, the White Sox, and the Dodgers. The Dodgers basically get a stronger bullpen arm in Scott Alexander. They get a young infielder, Jake Peters, who was okay in the minors. Kansas City gets a couple prospects, and the White Sox do White Sox things. Hahn is amazing. He gets Joaquin Soria and Luis Avalon, two good veteran arms in the bullpen that are affordable, and he can flip at the deadline. What are your takes on this?
Yeah, he's got his closer now, Joaquin Soria. For sure, they needed to kind of, I know the Players Association kind of frown upon the whole. There's no floor in baseball, but they want you to spend as much money as possible, so that they can make their own money. And we all know that this offseason with the cold stove or the warm stove, whatever you want to call it, the money has not been spent yet. So it's a good get for them. They have really nothing there, and like you said, can flip them at the deadline. Soria was pretty good last year, so that could be they're not going to win a ton of games, but could be a nice little sneaky fantasy play there late in the draft to pick up some saves. Alexander's great, and they lost Tony Watson already. They have Tony Cingrani there, but who knows if he'll continue to do what he did in the second half of last year for them, because he hasn't had that track record even though he's a young prospect, with the Reds, he hasn't had that track record to do it over a long period of time. So Scott Alexander has got that sort of, 94% of the time he's throwing a sinker. He's got a 74% ground ball rate, and they need another lefty in that bullpen. He can pitch to kind of both sides of the plate. So it's a good get for the Dodgers for sure. I think Trevor Oakes could be sneaky for the Royals. I mean, they need to somehow, like we said, replenish that farm system with all the rebuild that they're going to go through. Whether they sign Hosmer back or not, they're going to need those kind of, I wouldn't call him a lottery ticket per se. He had a 3.64 in the PCL, and we've mentioned we've mentioned many times when we do talk about prospects. When you're in the PCL, that's a bang box. I mean, that is a hitter's league. So 3.64 in the PCL is pretty good. I think he's got a fastball that can touch up to 95. So he could be decent for them. Whether he gets a chance right off the bat, I don't know. They may start him in AAA and see what happens. But being in the PCL, 16 starts there, maybe he's ready to jump in the rotation or they throw him in the bullpen. He could be a pretty good get for them. But everybody else, it's really just Scott Alexander, Joakim Soria, and then kind of the Royals getting rid of some salary a little bit. Alexander's not a young guy. He's 29. So I kind of like the trade for the Royals because they take a chance with a younger guy and, maybe he is a lot better for them in a few years where Alexander, would probably still be decent for them, but they might be selling high a little bit here.
Yeah, I agree. I like the Royals side of this because it's everything we said they needed to do. They needed to start doing this at the deadline last year. Oaks could be a nice piece, like you said, a lottery ticket per se, not an ace, but a good 3 or 4 for a while. Good stuff, and a pitcher's-friendly ballpark. He's already got the ground ball rate to help even more there. I'm curious about this Mejia kid they picked up. Switch hitter, hit decently in Double-A, and the thing I'm intrigued by is 7 homers with 25 stolen bases in a shortened season for the most time. Plays all 3 infield positions. This seems like the typical Kansas City Royal player. Like, I'm going to be a utility infielder. I'm going to produce for you in all this is Whit Merrifield. Whit Merrifield wasn't a power hitter before. Like it could be totally wrong, but I want to see more of this kid. I'm curious about him and see where that settles on. But because he's from Dominican, so who knows if he's even 23? He could be 27, 28 for all we know. But yeah, very interesting trade for the Royals, no doubt about it.
Another trade here. Toronto Blue Jays traded for another infielder. They traded for, and again, I'm going to get this wrong, so let me.
You can do this one.
Solarte. I can do this one. You think I can do it?
Yeah, I'll help you if you need it.
You go ahead.
Young Hervis Solarte.
It's a soft G. It's jogging.
Jogging.
So, I think it's a decent trade for the Blue Jays here. Padres received back they've received back 2 prospects. So the main guy is Edward Olivares. He's a young kid, 21 years old, but he was at Double-A last year. What do you got on this trade?
It's a great trade for both sides. Again, the Padres, add more depth to an insane system. Like, these guys aren't world beater prospects by any means, but they're good young players, and they're still young. So you got some time to see how they develop, which is always good. They're not like Olivares is the 18th best prospect for the Jays. Kharkov's not even there. He's 24. But they both have decent stuff. You'll have to see where it develops with them. But on the Blue Jay side of things, I like it a lot. Solarte, I'm a big fan of. He keeps showing more and more power, it feels like, every year. Switch hitter, can play all the infield positions. I think he's a good starter, but he'll be a good utility player on this team. Since he got to start playing every day in San Diego, 14, 15, and 18. In the 15 home run season, he only played 109 games because he was hurt. So he had 128 last year, 152 when he hit 14 3 years before that. Basically, last year he hit 255. He's more of a 265 to 270 guy with some potential higher numbers there. I like him a lot. I think he's going to thrive in that ballpark because that ball is going to fly out of there the way he hits. Doesn't strike out a ton. He only struck out a little over 11% of the time last year. What I like a lot is they picked up Aledmus Diaz, who hopefully can regain his form we saw a couple years ago. You throw him in there with Solarte, they can play all the infield spots right there. Done deal. And it helps with the team when you have guys like Devin Travis, who was beat up, Troy Tulowitzki, who we always know is good for 1 or 2, maybe half a season on the DL. Who knows? This gives them a lot of leeway there, and you're not having to put Darwin Barney out there to fix the problem now. You actually got some pretty decent players. Solarte was almost a all-star for the Padres at one time in the last 3 years. So, like, for a team that wants to show Josh Donaldson we can't break the bank, but we still want to compete. So I like it from that angle. It kind of helps both teams.
I love this trade for both of them. Now, Solarte was terrible last year against lefties, but he's been, average in his career. So we'll see what happens there. But like you said, he's played everywhere. I mean, literally played all 4 infield positions last year. He's going obviously from Petco to Rogers Center, which is a major upgrade. He can play DH too, obviously, if they can give Donaldson some break in case he's a little roughed up. But yeah, Devin Travis and Tulowitzki won't stay healthy. You give Smoke a break. So they've got a lot. You mentioned Darwin Barney, and we also have to mention Ryan Goins. I mean, they've had to fill in guys terrible guys. I mean, just terrible guys. So now they have a lot of depth in that infield. I wonder if somehow Solarte, I mean, if he's played every infield position, I'm sure he could play left field a couple games.
I was thinking that too.
You just never, especially maybe in the 9 games at Fenway, if they've got a couple injuries in the outfield, they kind of, or a couple of the guys aren't working out. I mean, Steve Pearce hasn't been healthy. So you could play him in Fenway for 8 games in left field where there isn't a lot of room there. There's not a lot of mistakes to be made except for the Green Monster, but, get him out there and see what happens. But so I think the other thing is, he's got $4 million coming up in 18, and then they have 2 option years of 5.5 and 8. If he can improve that power, I mean, that's a bargain on both those. Bargain. And we all know they're not signing Donaldson, so they're going to lose that money. I mean, Donaldson, according to MLB Trade Room, is going to make about $20 million this year in arbitration. So when they lose Donaldson, I'm not saying Solarte is Donaldson, but, at $14.5 million less, and then they can still kind of put that money to use somewhere else, they have some options there. So I love the deal for them. And then Oliveira is 2020 guy almost at AA, 277, definitely a lottery ticket. And this is just another guy. I mean, we talked about with the Royals, but we've mentioned with the Padres many times. AJ Preller, that snake, keeps kind of getting that more depth in that system, so that if he doesn't hit on a guy, and maybe somehow Fernando Tatis Jr. isn't what we think he is, now we've got some more guys that can maybe shine there, down in San Diego. So yeah, good deal for both teams.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I love the financial aspect you mentioned as well. It's real big. It's a shame I was looking up two of those numbers. They're going to owe him 15 or more million through 2021. It's
not good. Not good.
My God.
Yeah, that trade.
God bless you, Rockies. God bless you. That was a great trade.
It's really incredible what the Rockies did. I mean, it's really, really incredible.
Show you there's reasons why some teams are where they are, and no offense, Blue Jays fans, but there's reasons why.
I mean, at the time,
it was great at the time, yes.
I guess they didn't think that he'd be injured this early. Like you'd probably say to them, they probably said to themselves, you know what? By 2019, yeah, that might look really bad, but we'll get, 3 or 4 really good years out of him. And it just has not happened.
Yeah, agreed. All right, let's go into the Padres getting someone else. They signed Japanese pitcher. Now, this is one I get to butcher. I see how you set this up.
I got this one if you need it.
I'm going to give it a shot. Kazuhisa Makita.
Isn't it Kazuhisa?
Oh, yeah, Kazuhisa. You got me, Makita.
Yep.
Yeah. Got it. The Padres signed this pitching arm, 2-year deal out of Japan. And for once, it's not out of the same place where every other pitcher seems to come from. He's coming from the Cebu Lions. 2 years, deal only worth close to $4 million, which is pretty darn good. He's been a starter. He's been a reliever. He's done it all. Good sinking action, good swing, miss stuff. He's been great in the last few years. He's been more focused out of the bullpen. Last year, 3-3 with a 2.30 ERA, 59 hits in 62 and 2/3 innings. I haven't dug too deep into this guy, like for all of his. I'm just really confused because he's got a big swinging strike rate, but doesn't get a ton of strikeouts, so much as not be filthy stuff. But he's got good ground ball stuff. It's another really good, cheap bullpen arm for the Padres. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, he's a deceptive submariner, so that's probably why some swing and miss stuff there. But yeah, he was a starter when he first came up in 2011. Last 2 years, been focused on the bullpen. 2016, 1.30 ERA with like a 0.88 WHIP, and then last year 2.30 ERA. So, I'm not going to say I know anything about Japanese baseball, and I've followed it a lot. So, it seems like a normal, low budget MLB team move that we mentioned with last week when the Diamondbacks signed their guy, and he'll fit right in middle relief. And if he works, he works, and if he doesn't, he doesn't, because there's no money involved. I mean, $4 million over 2 years is nothing in baseball. So yeah, I'm not gonna say great signing, but it's worth the risk.
For the Padres, it's a phenomenal signing. Yeah. It's outstanding because these, I know it's a cliche. Like, we need a T-shirt. These are the moves they need to make. Like, this is what we say about so many teams, but it's so true. And the one thing I was thinking as I talked a couple points ago, the one thing this cold stove has taught me, at least by doing this podcast and researching, is how savvy some of these guys really are. Because usually we just see the big splashes in the headlines, and you kind of overlook a lot of the little things because everything else is like showing up. Well, we're having to focus on the little things, and it shows you just how good these guys are. And, come October, not say for the Padres, but for other teams, you're going to see the impacts of these moves made now on other factors. Like the White Sox move. Soria might be pitching the 8th inning for the Yankees, or not the Yankees, they have too deep of a bullpen. But you know what I'm saying? Like the Red Sox maybe, or somebody, trying to get them into the playoffs, and it cost the White Sox nothing, and it was beautiful. Like there's just little things like that that are pretty impressive with this offseason. I'm trying to find a silver lining in this whole thing.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, hey, the cold stove is teaching us some stuff. That's pretty funny.
Yeah, there you go. Blame Alex Cobb for not having a hot stove.
Blame him?
Well, he's one of the many. He's just next on our list.
I know. So the Cubs, I mean, they've been all over the place in the starting pitching, from the fake news to Yu Darvish now to Theo and company extending an offer to Alex Cobb. He declined. So the offer, according to SB Nation, was 3 years, $42 million. Supposedly, Cobb's asking price is around 20. Do you think? I mean, number one, was he right to decline this deal?
Okay.
Yes,
From a business standpoint, maybe I'd say no, though. Like the way these markets are starting to go right now, these teams, the word collusion is getting thrown around a lot, but I think it's just more, hey, we don't want to spend a lot of money on you guys, so we're all going to wait till your asking prices drop. It's like Hosmer, if he's got a big deal, take your deal. I think Cobb needs to take this deal.
You know what's funny is, I posted the Reggie Jackson thing getting the Hall of Fame, for this day in baseball. Obviously, there's not a lot in this day in baseball in January. But one of the things I looked at the other day was, I think it was like, I forget exactly what year it was. It might have been like the 92 or 93 year when they almost had the lockout. But it was like 10 guys, I think, sued the MLB for collusion. And it's now we're kind of like, we're not to that point because we're not going to have a lockout, but there's like no money floating around because the teams don't want to be above the luxury tax and they want to save for when the luxury tax gets higher in a couple years. I saw that on MLB Now the other day. So it's kind of interesting to see. The one thing with Alex Cobb is the innings. I mean, he just hasn't had that season. I mean, last season he had like 167 or 176, one of the two, but he hasn't had that season of 200 innings. At least not recently. And, I would suspect him and Lance Lynn are kind of the same, except Lance Lynn's very consistent other than the year he was injured. So I would suspect that he's going to end up getting a 3-year deal, maybe a little bit more than what they offered, maybe with an option for a 4th year based off innings. But, yeah, like you said, it's been quiet. I don't think he's going to get anything less. I think that's why it's an okay thing for him to decline this. I just don't see him getting anything less than $14 million. If he does get less than $14 million, whoever gets him, no matter what you think about Alex Cobb, and maybe he's hurt a lot, that's a deal in this day and age. It is.
Oh yeah, big time. Speaking, you mentioned Lance Lynn. I saw it come out today that the Nationals are interested in him. What are your thoughts on that? I know I'm taking a sidetrack here, but that wasn't one that came to mind earlier when we were talking Lance Lynn.
Yeah, well, I think the one thing here, and I'm just going to kind of look it up real quick as I'm talking, is, well, I mean, they have Scherzer, they have Strasburg locked up. I'm pretty sure, Gio Gonzalez is a free agent next year. I think Roark is a free agent the year after that. He's a free agent the year after that. So they're going to look into it and say, all right, we've got our 2 studs up top, locked in. And then after that, we may not be able to sign Gio Gonzalez. And then we may not be able to sign Tanner Roark. And we don't have a ton in the farm system right now because we traded all of our pitchers. So they may say to themselves, here's a bridge guy that when we lose Gio, he takes his spot. And then when we lose Roark, they'll probably give Lance Lynn a 4-year deal. We'll still have him for another 2 years at relatively cheap money. I would say no more than $17 million a year, maybe even a little bit less. So I think that's where they're kind of leaning towards there. And I don't I'd have to go back to MLB trade rumors to see, what they're saying for arbitration. But if they're saying that Gio Gonzalez is going to be, and I'll get it in 2 seconds here. If Gio Gonzalez is going to be a $16 million player on arbitration this year, we'll just pay Lance Lynn that contract, and then it will be there. Actually, Gio has a contract, but like Roark has $7.5 million is what they're projected for him this year.
Yeah.
So they're losing that money from both of them, and he'll just take it over. So, and Wert's money's gone. There's a lot going on there with the Nationals where they're going to lose a boatload of money this year, and then after that, they're going to have a little bit to spend. So I kind of like that move for them. Yeah,
no, when you break it down like that. So that's why I thought it was interesting, because we never really mentioned it, but it makes a ton of sense for them, especially, you almost have to start thinking, okay, we're going to build for the future, which doesn't involve Bryce Harper. So let's build with pitching and use our young bats that way. That's the way I'd look at it, kind of a Giants philosophy. So I can definitely get behind that.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, back to some Miami Marlins talk. Christian Yelich, we know, has not been happy, along with Realmuto and company. And the Marlins are starting to set their asking price for Yelich, which obviously and justifiably is through the roof. What are your interests on this one?
Hey, I mean, I like Yelich a lot. I think he's a good player. He's at a cheap price where his contract, he was one of the few guys lately that signed early. And I think we're going to see a change back to that, to be honest with you, with the way this offseason has kind of gone. But we'll see what happens with the major guys next offseason. The Braves they're asking for 3 or 4 genuine assets. What genuine means, I don't know. I don't think it's going to be crazy. I mean, the Braves have already contacted them. So if we're talking Braves, we're not talking Acuna. Are we talking Gohara as the main package, leading it, going back to them? That would be a good get for the Marlins. I don't see them giving it. I don't see the Braves giving him up. But that's where we kind of have to guess at this, saying what's genuine. Is it what I just mentioned, or is it the 5th guy leading the package with 3 younger guys, going there? And we obviously know the Braves don't have those younger guys anymore. So the other teams, Dodgers, Padres, D-backs, Giants, Nationals in the mix, where the Nationals have kind of asked for a Yelich Realmuto package, which is bananas to me, because if you're asking for both of those guys, are we talking Robles, and why would they give up Robles? So I don't think that will happen either. The D-backs are going to lose Pollock, so they're looking for a guy, but their system isn't big. So some of the teams that are in on this, the Dodgers, Padres have prospects. D-backs, D-backs, Giants don't. So what are we talking about here with genuine assets? And that's where I'm a little bit confused, where when I see the D-backs and Giants and even Nationals in the mix, as I don't see a Robles in there, I think the genuine assets won't be top 100 prospects. I just don't see it.
No, and we've seen that with the Marlins trade so far. It's almost like if you don't get the top guys, they'd rather have quantity over quality at that point.
Yeah.
And it's what makes you think that's what some other teams are involved is, okay, we're not going to give you like 2 or 3 of our top 20 guys or top 30 even, but we'll give you like 5 guys with one of them in the top 30 or something. We'll kind of mix and match. And they're almost going that route, it looks like. I think they're it's kind of like how we just talked about collusion for the free agents. I think, the Marlins players are about to start colluding with the team and going, you better trade us or you're going to have a long, long season on your hands here, longer than you already have.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's what happened. That's what it's feeling like, because a couple weeks ago, this was almost like a dead story, and now it's back to life again. It's interesting. And the real crazy part to me, maybe crazy is a big, loose word, the Phillies aren't mentioned here, and that's been a team that's always been mentioned with Yelich. They've been very, very, very high on him. And they do have pieces that are willing to deal, because to me, compared to the Braves and the Padres, the Phillies are way closer to getting it done. And I think they have some stuff that they could deal off. I'd be totally wrong, but they have pieces there, be it the 7 outfielders it feels like they have now. So they'll obviously have to get rid of some of them. You got Altherr, you got Quinn, you got some very talented players there. They're not going to trade Hoskins. They might trade Nick Williams though. He's been rumored and stuff because he's basically Williams and Altherr are platooning basically with the Santana signing. So I think the Phillies are still very, very much alive in a potential Yelich deal. Now they don't need Real Muto though because they got Alfaro catching who's a beast unless they flip Alfaro back as one of the bigger prospect pieces. But who knows? But I think Yelich to Philly makes the most sense to me. But we'll see.
The Phillies are interesting for sure. I thought the A's were in on them at the early part of this when Jeter started trading everybody. That'd be a weird one to me. I don't see. I mean, I guess because he's controllable, and they can if he flourishes there with a cheap contract, maybe they can flip him for more than they have, and that's how they look at him because you don't see them winning in the next couple of years, especially with the Angels, getting better. The Astros will be there. And then the Rangers and the Mariners in front of them too. So it's an interesting market for him because I just don't know if a team looks at Yelich and he's a good player. He is a really, really good player, very consistent. I don't think they look at him and say, we're going to give up a top guy in a package of 3 or 4 guys to get him. I don't see it there.
Yeah, he's not like he's a 20-20 guy, but he's not like a 30-30 guy, if that makes kind of sense.
Yeah, it does. It does, which is still very valuable. But yeah, our main point I think is the same. Let's move on to our last one. This is kind of a rumor, and it was kind of a juicy rumor for me. And some of the reaction to it, I thought it was interesting, and we kind of went back and forth on it. And I think we might disagree on this one. The rumor was Yasiel Puig for Jackie Bradley Jr. The Red Sox said no immediately, and I'll get your thoughts first, Bubba.
Okay. First off, I understand your viewpoint, which I'll let you express. So I want to state that first.
Okay.
But I think this is a upgrade that helps tremendously with all the things you've mentioned in the years past about Jackie Bradley slumping, Jackie Bradley this, that, and the other. I know he's a good ball player, and I know he can bounce back. I doubt he'll be as bad as he was this past year. That lineup, who we saw when he was actually having fun and motivated, how good he can be. He had an amazing season, and I think he can still be better than that. And then he put his arm in right field there, like right center field gap in Fenway. Defensively, I know Bradley's pretty decent at defense, I believe, but
decent.
Much
better than defense.
I think Puig would be such a good deal, and if it was a 1-for-1 like that, where they're not asking much. I think it would have really helped you because you guys got to compete with the Yankees right now. Jackie Bradley Jr. is not helping you compete with the Yankees. That's the way I look at it. What's your thoughts?
All right. So we're expecting, okay? I feel like this is what's happening with Yasiel Puig, okay? I know he had 28 homers last year. That's all well and good. Good player. We're expecting Yasiel Puig to – I think everyone looks at him when he came up in 2013 and what he did – he followed up in 2014. I think people look at him and see that player. He is not that player, okay? We've proven that. He's not even close to that player. 28 homers is the most he's had in his career, okay? I get it. He finally, he had 558 at-bats in 2014, and then he followed up with 282, and then he followed up with 334, and then he finally got almost to 500 last year, 28, 263. Jackie Bradley Jr., as I've mentioned many times, defensively, he's incredible. I mean, he just really is. I watch him every day. He's on par with Kiermaier. I mean, he's maybe he's better. I think Kiermaier still gets him a little bit. But I'm telling you, he's on par. He's a top 3 defensive center fielder in baseball. Top. So Buxton, Kiermaier, Pilar, maybe. I mean, I'm trying to think of other defensive center fielders, but you get the point. Top 5, we'll call it. And, do I think he is, what he was in 2016, where he hit 26 homers? Probably not. I think he's somewhere in between there. I think he's a 20-homer guy. I think he's a 255 hitter, which he was a 244 hitter last year. It's just the inconsistency. Now, let's get to the point here. Yasiel Puig, 2 years of him, JBJ, 3 years of him. I think the production defensively and offensively will not be that much. And the main one here is you expect Yasiel Puig to come to Boston. And let me get off my high horse. I understand. But Puig in Boston would be a disaster, an absolute disaster. You think Kyle Crawford had a tough time with Boston? You think Adrian Gonzalez had a tough time with Boston? Wait till Yasiel Puig gets here. It would be a disaster.
Yeah, fair enough. You know better than I do. I just think that offensive upgrade, it's too much for me to pass up. I think obviously 28 homers is, I'm not projecting that, but I'm thinking 20. He's got 20-15, 20-20 capability. He's going to hit 260 plus. I just like his upside with that, with the monster too. I think there's more power there than hitting in LA at Chavez. I think there's a lot to like about Puig. That's just me though.
I'm not a fan of the player, and I just don't. I think they're almost the same. I mean, not power wise, but I just think that having that extra year of JBJ of control at less money than Puig, because he's arbitration eligible. So if you're saying this year he's going to have the same year as last year, he's going to be a lot more expensive than Bradley will be. So I just think that I think that third year is huge, and the Boston aspect for Puig is not a good situation.
All right, well, we'll see where that one takes us. Let's do a little fantasy baseball talk. We'll do some ADP talk, try to incorporate stuff throughout the rest of the season. There's not a ton of websites with ADP data out yet without having to pay for it, so we're using Fantrax. They have the top 99 and go position by position if you want, but we're just going to throw a couple out there and see where everyone lands on this. But right now, early data is showing Charlie Blackmon 6, Bryce Harper 5th. Are you agreeing with that setup so far?
Yeah, I agree with that. And the reason, I mean, obviously, I think Harper could have a bad year and still get a big contract. I think we know what his potential is. But I think in that contract, I know they're both in a contract year, but Bryce Harper at his age and Blackmon at his age, Blackmon's not going to get even close to that money. He's going to get a nice contract, but, he's almost 34 years old, at 33, something like that. So I agree with that. I think I think you could go, I don't think you could go wrong, flipping one or the other just because of the cores factor. But in a redraft, I think you go Harper for sure. And obviously you go in a dynasty and keeper, you're going Harper before him.
Here's one for you. They're not like completely next to each other, but here's the first 4 pitchers off the board, and I'm definitely not on board with this. But 8th overall, Kershaw, and then 13th Scherzer, 14th Kluber, 16th Sale. Now that kind of bunching sounds more familiar, but literally Kershaw's 8th, the next one's Scherzer at 13. What are your thoughts on that kind of gap in Kershaw, Scherzer, Kluber, Sale in that order?
I think because of the back injury potential, it's tough to draft Kershaw that high. I mean, he obviously, if he's healthy for a full season, he's probably the best pitcher on the board. I mean, he's definitely the best pitcher off the board. I'm worried about – I don't think this year I'm worried about Scherzer, but the taxing on his arm in some situation, and maybe that will change now that he doesn't have Dusty Baker and now that they have a better bullpen. He's not young. I mean, he's going to be almost 34 years old, going in. He'll be 34 years old in the middle of the season. So he's not young, and he's thrown 200-plus innings for 5 years straight. Pretty much, 187, 195, 195 before that. So you have to wonder when that takes a hit a little bit. I'm not worried about it this year, but in the coming years, in a dynasty or keeper league, I may think about moving him for some younger guys. I don't own him. I don't own any shares of him in any of those leagues. But you know what I think, Chris Sale, he's going to have a contract year coming up. And then there's Kluber. But I try to stay away from a pitcher that early anyway in my drafts. But I don't think there should be that much of a gap either between the 4 of them. Now,
here's an even different question. But so Sale's at 16. That's the last of the 4. Would you want one of those 4, or would you rather wait till 27th for Bumgarner or 29th for Strasburg? And that's quite a gap, like 11 picks different between Sale and Bumgarner.
Is Bumgarner going to be riding a dirt bike this year?
No, he's going to be healthy. He's going to be a horse.
He's going to be healthy. He's going to be a horse. Now, the one
that's not even just homers I'm talking. I'm very confident in his stuff is together. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, looking at the overall, and you look at the players, around them. You got Correa basically Correa and Bryant right in between them. I'd almost rather pick them at that same spot.
Exactly.
I'm obviously very high on Correa this year. Hopefully having a full season. I have him in my keeper league, and I need him to be healthy this season. I think the one guy that's kind of a wild card there is Syndergaard. If you think that he's going to be healthy at 36, I mean, he could, if he stays healthy for a full season, he could push into that second round area. And so getting him at like a 36 ADP, that would be the guy I'd be aiming for if you are convinced he's going to stay healthy. That's the real red flag there.
You have Carrasco, Syndergaard, and DeGrom all right next to each other there, 32, 33, 34. You want Syndergaard out of the 3 of them?
For potential, yes. If I'm playing it safe, no. But if I'm thinking that that's the best guy out of the 3 of them, then I probably would go Syndergaard.
I want to give a little stat here. This is from Matt Modica on Twitter at CTM Baseball. I've had him on the bench with Bubba a few times. We'll have him on sometime. He's a great fantasy baseball mind. Does a FNTSY radio and stuff. But it's just crazy. A Bumgarner stat here, along with those guys we talked about. Madison Bumgarner is 4 months younger than Chris Sale and 354 days younger than Steven Strasburg. Yet he's thrown 409 more innings than Strasburg and 234 more innings than Sale.
That include playoffs, obviously?
Yeah, that's just bananas when you think about it.
I know. The one playoff that they basically threw like 21 innings in like 5 days. It was, that's bananas.
Yeah, but it's nuts. And I wanted to make sure if you guys are playing fantasy baseball or football, even with baseball especially, follow him. He tweets different stats out all the time.
Yeah, he's good.
Very, very good. And he's very approachable. So go check him out. A couple Cleveland Indians here. They're 19th and 20th on the rankings. ADP would be basically 20th overall, 20 and a half. Lindor or Jose Ramirez? Because I like Jose Ramirez a lot. I like what he brings to the table. Depending on your league setup, he's got position flexibility that Lindor doesn't have. But is it sustainable is the $1 million question. Do you want Lindor or Jose Ramirez at that point? If you had to take one, you might just not take them all together. But if you had to take one of those 2, which ones did you like?
Ooh.
It's tough. I've heard this one a few times.
Yeah, it's tough because, like you said, Jose Ramirez is sustainable. All of a sudden he just hits 25 homers.
Exactly.
I don't know if 29 homers. I think I said 25, but I don't know if he can sustain that power. I think there's a possibility he could sustain that average. I think maybe we're looking at closer to a 20 homer guy. And I think it might be the same thing for Lindor. Lindor all of a sudden went to 33 homers. He figured something out too. I know his fly ball rate went way up to 42%. So that could be one reason for it. And, his hard hit went to 35. I think I go Lindor there. The position flexibility is huge in fantasy baseball, especially where you get, second base and third base together. That's a big thing because, sometimes, second middle infield,
corner infield.
Yeah, hasn't been strong in years. And then, like you said, middle infield, corner infield eligibility as well, if you have that in your leagues. So I think on the long run, though, I think I go Lindor because he was always a top prospect. He was that guy. 33 homers I don't expect from him, but I expect him to be a better player than Ramirez over the long haul.
All right, last one for me for now. If you have some, knock yourself out. Otherwise, we can pick this up next week and see how the rankings have changed. But ranked 30th, or 39th and 40th and 42nd, ADP of 4288, 4297, and 4424. So all in the same grouping. But when you just look at physicalness and what you expect, they're a little different. But you got Benintendi, then Marcell Ozuna, now with the Cardinals, and Rhys Hoskins, who right now is his first base, but he's going to gain outfield eligibility with Santana there. So basically 3 outfielders. I'm actually surprised Hoskins, he's dropping already, because when the first mock drafts came out, he was a lot higher in drafts. He's already starting to fall, which is more of my liking, because I want to have him, but not this early. But the one that really touched me, Benintendi and Ozuna back-to-back. What's your thought on that one?
Oh man, I mean, you know what I think about Benintendi.
That's why I brought it up.
Yeah, it's off the. I mean, I'm looking at it now. I love Ozuna. I mean, I really, really do. I probably go Ozuna right now in a redraft league. I mean, he just has that power potential. 27 years old. Hoskins, I wonder moving to outfield I wonder if that will hurt his bat a little bit. I don't
remember what happened to Sano when he moved out there?
Yeah, it was not good. Now, I think Hoskins, at least he's shown a little bit more potential in terms of plate discipline and whatnot than Sano. But yeah, that's. I think, and if I rank them, and again, I'm looking at it right now, I probably go Ozuna 1 for sure, and then I think I'd have to go Benintendi, because I think that power will improve. I think he'll get to close to between 25 and 30. I don't know if he'll hit to 30, but I think that power will improve. He had a 6-week stretch. I'm pretty sure that he really didn't hit at all. I mean, I think it was right in the middle of summer. It was his first full season. He did have trouble against lefties last year. I'm looking at this now. Yeah, July he hit 222 with 2 homers. And then he kind of figured it out a little bit. September kind of had that bad month, but he had 3 months were very good and then 3 months were awful. So I think he'll somehow figure it out. Hoskins, we all know he's got the power potential, because, in the minors, we're talking 38 homers in 2016 and then 29 homers until he came up and hit, 18 in the majors. So this may be crazy, but with the steals, I still think I go Benintendi second and then Hoskins third.
Yeah, that's kind of where I lean for now. I'm a big Hoskins fan. There are quite a few concerns at this point for me. It's almost at this point, you got Hoskins at 44-24, and then at 48-58, you can get Nelson Cruz. I'd almost take Nelson Cruz.
Yeah, and I think Nelson Cruz is now he's old, but I think he's a free agent next year too. So
free agent, and he's just consistent. There's something about, you do want that, at least when I draft, especially early picks, you want that big upside, but there's a lot to say about consistency too. I'd almost rather gamble on the back end of my draft, but
yeah, it's tough with those the second year guys, especially when they really get in there. I mean, they're going to have some slumps. It's going to be their first full MLB season. There's going to be a lot of pressure on that kid for sure. I mean, I really believe that's why they signed Santana a little bit, because now they have another power bat there to take a little bit off his shoulders, which is why I loved the signing for them, especially at only a 3-year deal. But I think that Hoskins is going to have a little struggle next year at some point, and that high is tough. It's really tough.
Big time. All right, let's take it into we're going to go top 10 positions. We'll start with catchers this week. We're going to go with the fantasy angle to it to help you guys out. But we'll go position by position for the upcoming weeks here. We're going to start with the catcher's position this week. Mo, who is your number 1 catcher?
Yeah, I think I don't need to go in depth on this. Gary Sanchez.
Yeah, let me double check. Gary Sanchez for me as well.
Okay.
And like you said, we don't really have to go too in depth.
Yeah, we don't have to go. I think we all know that he may be the best pure hitter on that team. That's the scary part of it. And,
I agree.
And now he's going to see probably more pitches with not only Judge, but Giancarlo there. So that is a scary, scary proposition. And that's going to be the most interesting. I think that's going to be the most interesting part of drafts is I think we both have the same thought where we wait on catchers. We don't want to kind of reach for them too early just because they are a catcher and catcher, that position is never deep. I think this could be the year where you say it's worth it taking Gary Sanchez. I think it's easy, and which means I once a lot more drafts go on, where these free agents kind of when they settle, you could see Gary Sanchez's ADP like going sky high.
Yeah, he's around 25 right now on that Fantrax ADP list. I agree to an extent, but I started making my fantasy rankings for the year, and you can go deep here. We're about to find out, but the difference, I see what you're saying. Like if you're doing in a tier format, I was talking to a guy last night about it. If you guys are drafting, make tiers, make your own rankings, whatever, but tiers help so much, and Sanchez literally is in a tier of his own.
Yep.
So,
yep.
All right, who you got at number 2?
I still have Buster Posey. I think, the power's gone away, of course, and you watch him every day. But I think he's just still the second best catcher because it's just the consistency is there, high average, over 400 OBP. I think the power could still come back, and he could hit around 15 to 18 homers instead of the 12 he hit last year. So I still have him at 2.
My guy is Wilson Contreras of the Chicago Cubs. I'm looking for a healthy year from him. One thing that I like a lot from my catchers, especially as high as these guys are ranked, you're going to want some pop with them. I think he's one of the, outside of Gary Sanchez, has that upside to hit just 20-plus bombs rather easily if he gets to play every day. Posey, I just don't see doing that anymore. I still like him a ton. Totally agree with you. But I got Wilson Contreras, number 2, playing in Wrigley, the everyday guy. He was on a pace for some big numbers last year before he got hurt. And I think he can maybe come through with that this year. Steamer's early projections have him hitting 20 with 64 runs scored, 73 ribbies, hitting 271. I would take that from my catcher right now.
Okay.
Who you got at 3?
I have actually Salvador Perez. And the reason why I have him there, I know he plays in a tough ballpark. Last year, 27 homers, the most in his career. He's gone up every year. He's probably going to be the guy there now, which it kind of scares me a little bit. But the fly ball percentage was the highest of his career at 47%, and it wasn't even close. His hard hit percentage was 38%. I just think with his consistency, I think he's going to have another good year, and you can always count on him to just be there. He's hurt a little bit, but I just think the consistency and that fly ball percentage and the hard hit and a couple other things that go along with it, I just like him at 3.
I don't hate it. I have him a couple picks later, but I agree. And he's another consistency guy I like a ton. So I can definitely back you on that one. My guy at 3 is Buster Posey. You already said pretty much everything about Buster. He's going to be very good average. He hits close to 300 every year. He had a huge year last year, hitting 3. What the heck was it last year? Open up 320, which is just insanity from your catcher's position. But only 12 homers, and you have to draft him early. That's why I don't think I've ever had him once on one of my teams. But now that he's dropping more, he is a target. I can definitely get behind that. So Posey at 3 for me. Who's your 4?
Yeah, your guy Contreras. Again, I agree. 25 homer 30 homer potential if he gets the at bats. I think that's the key there. They like to rotate a little bit. I know Lester has his guy. When David Ross was there, he had him. So they like to rotate it a little bit there in Chicago. And I got him. You've said everything about him. I mean, I like him too a lot. I just think the consistency with the other 3 above him, I value a little bit more. And again, I think that the main thing when ranking these guys, not saying that I would draft them at their ADP, but definitely ranking them in this order.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. These are rankings. This is, again, where I mentioned tiers. You got to figure all that kind of stuff out. It varies. My number 4 is one that might surprise some, but I'm going Wilson Ramos every Tampa Bay Rays.
I thought I was high on him.
I love Wilson Ramos. I was so happy when they made this move last year. I don't know if we were recording quite at the time they made this. We might have just been starting to get our feet wet.
Because he had his torn ACL and he was coming back mid-season,
Yep.
So I think we did, yeah.
I absolutely love him. He played great once healthy. He proved it. He hit 260 with 11 homers, 35 ribbies, and 208 at-bats. And I'm not saying he's going to light the world on fire, but he can get you close to 375, 400 at-bats. Now you're creeping in on 18-plus homers. I love him, and I have him ranked 4th. You said you have him ranked high. He's not going to be ranked. He's not going to go this high. Like if you look at the Steamers projections, man, they got him They got him low. They got him way down here, hitting 253 though, still with 19 homers, 59 ribbies. You can get some good value on him. I like him a lot. So yeah, Wilson Ramos is my 4, and there's really no one stopping him from playing time, and they're going to want to showcase him to trade him. So this is a guy I like a lot.
Yeah, because the Fantrax we just looked at had him at 202, so I can get behind him for sure.
Yeah, so my ranking of him at 4 is definitely high, and you can sneak him in way late.
I'll add.
So who's your 5? Yeah, is he your 5?
No, Real Muto is still my 5. I think he's been, again, last couple of years consistent. Couple less stolen bases, which I think we pointed out last year. That was the reason why he was that high, was he had 12 stolen bases as a catcher, which you don't get rarely. You don't get that at all. Russell Martin back in his younger days, maybe. But I think I like Real Muto a lot. He could be traded to a better ballpark. We don't know that yet. But I'm a fan of Real Muto for sure.
Yeah, definitely like him. My number 5 is Salvador Perez, your number 3, which that's why I can't argue with him at 3. I could definitely see him being worthy of that. He's a 20-plus homer guy, middle of the order, not a ton around him right now unless Hosmer comes back. There's a lot to like with Salvi there. Reliable, team leader, all that good stuff. Pretty much everything you mentioned, I'll echo. Salvi Perez at 5 is my guy. Who you got at 6?
That's your guy, Wilson Ramos. And when I put him at 6, I was like, maybe I'll sneak one in on Bubba here, and he'll have him ranked a lot less. But no, you got him. You got him there. And like you said, he's healthy. The ISO last year was the same in half the at bats as his 22 homer season back in 2016, 2015, whatever. Either way, it still works. 22 homer season. The BABIP was much lower at 260. So I see him again with 20 homer potential. Could raise that average a little bit. So yeah, I'm especially at that 202 ADP. I'm inclined, if I don't get Sanchez early, I'm inclined to wait on him for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny now, my number 6, we had our top 6 in a different order, but we have all the same top 6 because mine's JT Real Muto.
That's what I figured. Yep, that's what I figured.
So this is kind of fun. I'm enjoying this, actually. We were on the same page, but slightly different, which makes it good because usually we agree on everything. So This works well. But yeah, Real Muto, he's that rare catcher that's got like 10 steal capability. You just don't see anymore. Good average. The pop seems to get better and better every year. So I can definitely get behind JT. And if he can get traded to a better ballpark, oh boy, that could be tremendous. It might be a worse situation, but it could be there aren't many worse ballparks in baseball outside of Miami. There's the Giants and Petco and not many others. So, JT Real Muto is my 6. I like him a ton. Now it could get interesting. Who's your 7?
So this is a very interesting one. I have Evan Gattis at 7. And I think, they have him on roster resource as the DH right now. I think he'll play a little bit, with McCann there as well. But, he just didn't get the at-bats last year. He had 12 homers, it was his lowest of his career in the majors. He had 20, 21, then 22 and 27, then the year before 32. So he still has that power potential, and it's not like he's getting super old. I mean, he's only 31 right now. He won't turn 32 till August. So I've got him, especially where his strikeout percentage went way down from what it's been in his career to 15%. So there's something happened there too. But I have him at 7 right now.
I'm a big Gattis guy. I have him quite a bit farther down the list, only for the reason is, will he get those at-bats?
Yeah, I think he does, because there's no Beltran there anymore. And, not that Beltran was taking his at-bats, a lot, but I don't think their bench will be as good this year as maybe it was last year.
Yeah, and that's my only concern. If as we go farther into the offseason, if we start in spring training, find out, hey, Gattis is going to get 450 at bats. Okay, that shoots up big time because I do love Gattis. Projections have him for 504 at bats, and that gets him 30 homers, 87 ribbies, and 73 runs scored. That's tremendous. Yeah, I am all aboard that train. I just need to know he's getting those, and that'll change my rankings tremendously. Mm-hmm. When he was the everyday guy in Atlanta, I was all over him. So I'm with you there. If he's got the at-bats, I'm there. My number 7, this is a transaction that's happened this offseason that I was extremely excited for. Beef Wellington headed to Chicago. Absolutely love the beef in that ballpark. Wellington Castillo, he's got some good pop. Showcased it in Baltimore last year. 20 homers, 53 ribbies. Hit him. How will this not work? Hit 281, which is not sustainable for Beef Wellington. But heck, hit 260, but still give me that pop, which you can do in that ballpark for sure. He mashes lefties. There's a lot to like with Beef, in my opinion. He's another guy that you can probably get a lot later in your drafts, kind of in the Ramos world of things. So I got Wellington at 7. I like him a lot.
Yep, agreed.
Who's your 8?
My 8 is Mike Zunino, and this is tough for me. I'm not going to own him at all, but I think his second half should be looked at a little bit. You know, his average was there. Strikeout rate went down a little bit. His walk rate went up. The one thing that's tough is the 394 BABIP, which will certainly regress. So it's tough to put him here, but I think where you get past the top 6, and maybe some people don't agree with us on Wilson Ramos, you're going to have a gap there. And I won't be targeting him in any drafts for sure. But, you know, he was the former number 4 pick. So he has had that potential for sure. He obviously has the power. Can he get that average to stay around the 250, 260 area? And if he does, then maybe he's worth being drafted where he is. But in terms of our rankings, I got him at 8 right now.
Yeah, I don't mind that at all. I'll be bringing him up shortly. But at number 8, I'm going with one that was really painful for me, but I had to put aside the rough go of things. As you know, you look at his numbers last year, they were not pretty. He hit 265, 6 homers, 40 RBIs, and I'm talking Jonathan Lucroy. He can't be worse than that. I think he's going to be very, very good. A lot of it's going to depend on landing place, so this ranking could severely change. But I think there's a bounce back in him. We know how good he can be. And given the right approach and everything, this guy's got 15-plus homer power, hits for average. One thing, the reason why I don't think I'll have Gary Sanchez is we've already mentioned a bunch of guys that have 15, 20-plus homer power already that you can get later in the draft. Now, if you want the, guy that gets 30-plus and on a good year can get 90-plus ribbies, well, sure, you go Gary Sanchez. But Jonathan Lucroy, maybe he falls even later. Maybe he scoots up because he has a good spring. I don't know. I just think there's a bounce back. I don't think he can be any worse than he was last year. So he's still a very good hitting catcher. So I got Lucroy at 8.
Okay.
Who's your 9?
I got Wellington Castillo. You already mentioned him. I was surprised. I didn't even pay attention to how good of a year he actually had in Baltimore last year with the limited ABs. He got to 20 homers. So I like him there a lot. Chicago likes him. I do think he'll get a few more at-bats this year there for sure. I know they like Navarez as the backup as a sort of defensive catcher, but I like him a lot. You've talked about him already, and that's what I've got at 9.
My 9 is Mike Zunino. I agree with everything you said. I think he's a good young talent. I think you mentioned a very, very important thing is people need to realize he was one of the top picks in the draft in his time. Like this kid is good. He's just had a rough go of it, and the BABIP is not sustainable. You're not drafting Zunino for batting average. You're drafting him for the crazy power he does possess, and we saw it come to light for a while last season. And that lineup's got a lot of thump in it. If it's all working together, he could be a very integral part to that system. So I like Zunino at 9.
Yep.
Who's your 10?
Yeah, I'm Lucroy with 10.
Wow, we were fucking close.
Yeah, we were close. Is just something going on? I don't understand what happened. Like, he all of a sudden, like, in 2016 had the 37% ground ball rate and 38% fly ball rate, and then, like, flipped those and went 53% ground ball rate and 27% fly ball rate. And it showed with the amount of homers he hit. He cut his ISO in half, and he actually struck out much less, which is what he did, early in his career in 2012 and 2014. But it was just a weird thing. He just did not hit the ball in the air, and that same thing happened in 2015, and then he bounced back. So he's not old. We're not saying he's like 36 years old. He's only 31. So he's not old. He's better than this. like you said, we don't know where he's going. I know the Mets might be interested from what I've seen. I was a little surprised the Rockies didn't bring him back because I thought he was okay for them, and they went the cheap route with Iannetta. Could be a while till we see where he goes, to be honest with you.
No, I agree, and that's why a kid landing place could dictate a ton of how I move him up or down my rankings. But like you said, the talent's there; it's coming.
Yep.
So your only difference in the top 10 was Evan Gattis. My only difference is my number 10, Yadier Molina. And Molina's tricky. He's old, but he had a great season last year. He's kind of in his swan song. And I know this isn't great analytics here, but Molina's just hit. Like, it doesn't matter how old they get, they hit. And Molina looked really good last year, like really, really good. We were talking about on the World Baseball Classic throughout the season. He had a 274 with 18 homers, 82 RBIs, and he stole 9 bases. All that, but if he even gets me 5 stolen bases, I'd be just through the roof with Yadier Molina. That's a tremendous thing you can get from a catcher. He's projected to hit 277, which is going to bring you the average, 12 homers, 64 ribbies, and they even got 6 steals for him on Streamer's early projections here. You know, from 8 down, 10 down, or whatever, it gets real up and down, whatever your preference is. I'm a big Yadi believer this year. He's one of those guys I don't mind taking late in the draft if you missed out on certain guys you're looking for.
Yeah, I would probably have him just outside of the top 10. And I think the one thing is the lineup will be better this year, so that could help him too.
Yeah, I was going to mention, I have Gattis at 15. Do you have any other honorable mentions before we wrap it up?
You know, it's tough with the whole, you know, Grandal had such a great first half, but it looks like that, you know, Austin Barnes is really going to take over there and get probably the majority of the bats from what I've been reading. You know, you've got the young guy, you know, Jorge Alfaro. I wonder when Francisco Mejia comes up for the Indians. That's something to watch, but it's tough to get behind, you know, young catchers. And then maybe in Texas, you know, a Robinson Chirinos. Yep, I got it. But almost a lisp there for me. So he's a sneaky one too. I mean, he had 20 homers last year. So there are a lot of catchers that you could get really late if you just wanted to punt there and hope for a lottery ticket. There are a lot of guys there.
Yeah, I agree. Austin Barnes, I'm glad you hit on that one. If we find out what their situation as a catcher, because if one of the two gets every day at bats, then I'm all in. I hope it's Barnes over Grandal just for average purposes, but I'm big there. Stephen Vogt's a guy to keep an eye on in a great hitter's ballpark. A guy that always seems to produce when he's healthy is Francisco Cervelli, and you can get him with like your last pick usually in most drafts. So that's one of those guys you can wait on. I agree with the Chirinos, another guy like similar to Chirinos, just not the same ballpark as a Travis d'Arnaud. He's another guy to keep an eye on. And then a guy none of us mentioned, he always gets overlooked. And he's been rough of late, and he's dicey. But you'll never be surprised if Russell Martin comes through for you. But that's a real dicey one.
Yeah, it's tough average, but I would think. Power. I mean, obviously they're going at different, you know, rate. Like when you talk Mike Zunino to Russell Martin, I mean, Mike Zunino's going 100 picks in front of him almost right now, and they might now. Granted, Russell Martin doesn't have the same power that he does, but if he does decide to hit like he normally does, he could get close to that, and they could be the same player for 100 picks less. So
yeah, and that's what it's all about, is just finding your value in the right spots.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we'll keep doing that. That was fun. It was kind of crazy. We didn't talk at all, and we had 9 of the same 10 guys, but only 2 of them are only 1 at the same position. And that was Gary Sanchez, kind of Captain Obvious. So that worked out well.
That was good.
Yeah, very good. Hopefully, we say this, I think, 3 or 4 weeks in a row now, we have stuff to talk about next week. Otherwise, shoot us some questions. We'll keep thinking of stuff, but we really don't want to talk about guys pushing cars up a hill. So,
well, I gotta say, like, I think one thing that's been happening is, you know, obviously the top 10 prospects for each team are coming out. So I think we'll throw that in there. I'm sure the top 100 prospects for 2018 will be coming out in a few weeks. Will be coming out in a few weeks, and then I would think and hope that by February 1st we'll have all these guys signed and we'll be able to start some previews and whatnot. And then, you know, the regular season over-unders come out, and we'll get some gambling guys on to talk about that and some other interviews. And we'll figure out a way. But yeah, it's slow right now for sure.
And we got the Hall of Fame coming up in a couple weeks. Hall of Fame votes coming in. So
that'll be interesting. Yep.
Definitely stuff to talk about. But until then, it's been a pleasure. Episode 46 of Around the Base of the Bubba and Mo in the books. Check out the podcast. We have it on iTunes. Rate and review it, please, because the more rates and reviews we get, the more we can actually do with this and make it bigger and better. It's on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher now. It's going to be on TuneIn, and it's on Spreaker. Just go to your favorite listening site and search for it. It will be there. Check out the podcast on Twitter at Around Bases Pod. Mo is at Boston_Mo. I am at BDentric. And as always, guys, thanks for listening. 46 in the book. Catch you guys next week.
See ya.